Hello everyone, this is Roman Baghamazov, and this is our session number 7 for the Chinese market from the WYCKOFF Trading Institute. And with me today, as usual, Joe Gorbin, and Mike is gonna help us translate our session today again.
大家好，这里是罗蒙·博格马佐夫教授，这是我们威科夫交易研究所的第7次视频。今天呢，我的翻译工作还是由我的学生赵国本先生来担任。
Today we'll talk about a distribution, and I thought it was a very interesting development in the markets, in the Chinese markets, the way how the price structure developed. So we'll talk about Shanghai, and we'll talk about Shenzhen composites.
今天呢，我们首先复习一下派发区间的阶段和事件，因为它在市场综合指数里发现了很多比较有趣的结构上的变化。然后呢，我们就看到上证综指和深证成指的周线图和日线图来看一下。
Before we start with the material, I wanted to thank all of you who emailed us to wyckoffTrading@hotmail.com. Mike is going through a lot of those those emails, and I look at some of them. I can't answer all of them, but I really appreciate all of the comments of support that you express, and I'm really happy that for a lot of you, this is a good material, and you see some value in this material for your own trading, for your own investment. It really pleases me, so thank you so much for mentioning this. And also, thank you for all of your questions. We are definitely trying to still set up the kind of like the operations. And for now, in the short-term goals for us is just to continue our weekly analysis of the Chinese market. But then later on, we'll create basic videos on basic lectures for WYCKOFF, which are going to be free, and hopefully that's going to come, during summertime. So stay tuned, and thank you for all of your support.
在正式讲正式内容之前，首先感谢大家给我们发邮件，给我们在录像底下留言。我看到了很多大家给我们那个 wyckoffTrading@hotmail.com 然后发的邮件。罗猛教授说我没有把所有的东西都回复，但是呢，我回复了一部分。然后呢，非常感谢大家对我们的夸奖，因为很多朋友来说，哎呀，说这个录像内容很有用。很有教育意义，非常感谢大家这方面的评价，这呢让他也感到非常高兴，而且有信心继续来做这个事情。很多朋友呢也给我们很多建议，就说我们将来怎么做。目前来讲呢，这只是这个项目的刚刚开始，而过一段时间呢，他认为他会做一些个最基础知识的录像，然后这些录像呢也免费的给大家，希望这大概在夏天，7月份之前或7月份以后吧。咱们说7月份吧，要把这些录像做出来。
All right, well, let's jump to our material for today. And as I mentioned, we will talk today about a distribution. And specifically, I want to talk about the area where a change of character happens.
首先来说，我们复习一下派发区间的威科夫事件和阶段。最重点来讲，他想看一下阶段 C 和阶段 D， 也就在这个阶段呢，有一个特性改变。
Our downtrend is going to always start with the point in phase C. And phase C could be a higher high, and if this is a higher high, we would label it as an upthrust after distribution, or if this is a lower high, then we would label it a last point of supply.
在这个阶段呢，它基本来说，它的下跌是从最高点的上冲回落开始的。这个呢，有可能是呢，就是最高点，也就是点比点高，这个高点比前面的高点都高的话，那么这个时候呢，就是上冲回落，或者是派发后的上冲回落。如果这个点比较低于中间阶段 B 的高点的话，它叫做最后派发点，或者是最后 供应点。
Before this high, we usually would have a lot of the weak hands excited and buying on the way up. This type of buyers are waiting for a couple of things to happen. They are waiting for a possible breakout of the price, and a lot of their buys are in this area right here, or more savvy weak hands are going to be buying at the lows in anticipation that the breakout would happen.
在这个最高点出现之前，在这个整个的这个路上，有很多散户或者是弱手，它叫弱手，然后在这里买进。很多人呢是买进完以后等待突破。一些个更聪明的这个交易者呢，就是说也是弱手啊，也就是很多这个弱手交易者，稍微聪明一点，他们有可能在这个上涨波段的底部买进。
At the same time, big money, the composite operator of men, is actually selling. And it's selling on the way up, and it's selling also on the way down, and specifically on the major sign of weakness reaction.
在这些弱手或者是散户买进的同时，谁在卖呢？其实这个时候是机构在卖，也就是那个综合人他在卖，他在这个上涨的这个整个波段一直在卖，而且在下降的时候，在正到了上冲回落，经过完以后，再下降到弱势信号，整个这一个阶段他都在卖。
So it's a very interesting spot, structural spot, where we see strong hands are selling into the weak rally, and then the weak hands are excited that the price has consolidated for some time. They see some kind of value, and they are buyers in anticipation that the breakout is going to happen.
这个阶段的特点就是什么呢？是强手或者是机构在卖出，而这个弱手或者是散户呢？因为他看到，哎，这个阶段到目前为止，这个股票已经盘整了好长一段时间，而且现在又处于低价阶段，所以说他们非常高兴，非常狂热，赶快就在这块买进了。
In other words, we could say that on the way up, when the big interests are selling, there is an absorption of the demand.
也就是说，整个在这个上升波段的时候，我们可以看到是，需求被消耗了。
The most active spot is going to be the breakout itself, and this is where both weak demand is going to increase and strong supply is going to increase as well. And that's going to, in some instances, produce some kind of volume increase. And the more I study Chinese charts, the more I study Chinese markets, the more I appreciate the uniqueness of the Chinese market, the way how the big money behave, the way how the small money behave. And today, on the indices charts, we're going to see this type of the behavior that I'm describing here on the way up and then on the way down.
这张图上，在中国市场来说，最有趣的点就是那个突破点。他刚才画圈那个突破点，在这个突破点的时候，很多弱手一看，哇，股票已经突破了，他们会大量的买进。所以说他们是弱手，他的需求增加了，买进增加了。与此同时呢，这个大机构或者是强手，他会大量的卖出。所以说这个时候就变成一种情况，成交量增加，需求从弱手这样的需求增加了，而且从强手。从机构那的供应增加了，会变成了成交量增大。罗猛教授说，他经过这个就是了解这中国市场，越了解多，他就会发现中国市场越有趣，和其他国际市场都有不一样的地方，而且是尤其是在这个点上，在几次市场出现这种派发的时候，都会这块非常非常突出。一会儿他会给大家讲解这个上涨阶段和下降阶段这个派发过程。
So as this point occurs, the point of extreme activity on the breakout, because the strong hands have sold their holdings and maybe even opened some short positions, the weak hands cannot push the price higher anymore. And because there is no support from institutions by buying the stock, usually the price is going to fail around this area right here, and it's going to collapse back into the trading range. And in a lot of cases, this is what we've seen with the Chinese indices and some of the stocks.
在这个突破点的时候，这个时候大家知道是散户弱手大量买进，而机构呢却是大量的卖出。这个时候他们都成交了，成交完以后啊，这个突破完以后，因为没有机构再继续买，所以说这个弱手呢，它不可能把股价继续的推高很多。所以说过一段时间，也就是它这个需求量就逐渐的减低，而这个强手这个大机构它又没有支撑这个市场，没有托市，所以说这股价就跌回来，跌回交易区间。
So because Chinese market is so unique, what I'm seeing is an area of very active institutional participation, and then kind of like a very dull period of inactivity where institutions are basically out of their positions and they are staying on the sidelines. And at this spot, only the weak hands are trying to see some kind of value, and they are coming in into this position in anticipation that the price is going to come back. But there is some kind of failure on all of the rallies that follow, and the chart might turn down in a very quick way.
罗猛教授他画了两个圈，上面那个圈就大家看到刚才突破那个或者上档波段到突破那个地方，这是机构比较活跃卖出的地方。等到它卖出完以后，然后股价下跌，跌到这个支撑线这个附近，这个时候呢，其实机构已经手里没有筹码了，他们是不作为阶段，他们躲在一边，然后看这个市场如何发展。在这个支撑线这个时候附近的时候，也就是机构派发完了以后，这个时候机构无作为，散户有些人看到，哎，现在股价更低了，这个时候他认为是便宜，只有说散户和没有这个比较弱手，他在这个时候他才买进，他认为，哎，最近是个这个好的买点，而他希望买进完以后，希望这个股价再上升，但很多时候因为散户他的力量不够，所以说股价的价格它上涨也不会很多，所以说叫上涨失败。
That's why in the area of activity by institutions, we usually will have a higher volume signature, or sometimes we would say that the effort there is more dominant and it's increasing. And then in the second period where institutions are already out of their positions, this is where we see that the volume signature actually goes down. And this is a very, very specific thing to Chinese market because of the rules, because of no shorting rule, because of the triggers of 10% rule if the price goes down. So all of that contributes to the way how institutions behave. And at least for now, this is what I'm observing.
大家看到在机构比较活跃的，也就是在突破机构卖出那个地方，机构比较活跃的地方，它的成交量都非常大。你换另外一句话说，用威科夫的方法来说，也就是努力在增加。然后呢，在机构派发完以后，到了支撑线，价格跌到支撑线这个时候，大家看到成交量是减低的，因为这个时候机构没有作为，或者是跟中国的股市很多策略就是政策比较相关。比方政策是我们没有做空，另外呢，我们每天就是这成交价格跌幅不能超过10%，所以说这个时候成交量也会低，这就是罗蒙老师他观察到的一些现象。
So our goal here is to understand the specificity of Chinese market, and at the same time to understand that the structure is still going to develop the same way. we're still gonna have the highest point of the downtrend in phase C. We're still gonna see some failure and collapse of prices that's gonna lead the prices back into the trading range and specifically into the area of the support that was created by the support points in phases A and B. And that would become a major sign of weakness. And on this major sign of weakness, we would be committing below the support line. And then the next subsequent rallies, which are going to be the last point of supply rallies, have specific characteristics of inability to rally significantly back into the trading range. And that's what we're going to look at today.
中国的市场虽然是很特别、很特殊，有别于其他的股票市场，但是整个来说，魏科夫的派发事件它不变，就是这个结构它不变。首先来说，它的最高点在阶段 C 的最高点也是那个上冲回落，或者是最后派发点。说如果它比阶段 B 的高点低一点的话，从这一点机构派发完以后，股价下跌，然后跌到支撑线附近，甚至会跌破支撑线，这个时候就变成了弱势信号。弱势信号在这个时候，有些个弱手买进去，然后再使股票反弹，有可能会反弹到这个区间之内，但是呢不会反弹很多，这时候形成最后派发点，这个反弹比较虚弱，在这个弱势信号以后到最后派发点的时候反弹虚弱，所有的这一切都非常符合魏科夫他的这个派发和派发区间和里面的事件表现。
All right, well, let's look at the long-term current picture for Shanghai Composite. This is going to be the first index that we're going to look at. And here, as before I've mentioned, what catches our eye right away is the increased volatility. And increased volatility we see in the increase of the spread to the downside, in a slight increased volume signature, and that happens still within the confines of the trading range that was defined so long ago.
首先我们看到一下上证综指这个周线图，这个长期图。首先映入我们眼帘的，也就吸引我们注意的，就是振幅增大，也就是看2018年1月和2月的时候，这个振幅2根周线，然后立刻特别大，振幅增大，价差增大。然后呢，这是它的最近最吸引我们的。虽然是这个振幅增加了，价差增加了，但是它这个区间仍然是在2015年的时候，这个表现确定的区间之内。
We had such a laborious move to the upside that still had the definitional higher highs, higher lows. For the definition of the uptrend. But our goal and intention with that rally was to overcome this high right here. And we actually making a slightly lower high. So we are failing to upthrust. We are failing to make a new high. And that leads to the failure. And we see how the effort is slightly increasing in this area, where result is decreasing. So that becomes somewhat bearish. And we want to look into this area right here that consolidates at the 1/2 of this whole range, about this period of time. And we want to look into this area on the daily and just to figure out what exactly is happening there.
也就是从2016年2月份到2018年1月，我们可以看到这段时间上涨的非常艰难，而且它的这个幅度也非常小，波动的幅度也非常小。整个这段上涨，大家股票上涨它有一个目的，就是突破前高。我们看到呢，现在它到了2015年10到12月份那个前高的时候，它想突破，但是没有达到高点。在这个时候呢，所以说这个突破没有失败的时候，股价就开始下跌。这个时候我们可以看到，在这个2018年2月份附近，成交量稍微增高一点，我们可以说是努力增加了，但是呢，结果却没有，它没有突破，反而下跌了，所以说是结果减低。这个时候就是说什么？它是熊市表现，就是熊的迹象表现。 而且罗蒙老师画了一个圈儿，是从2018年2月到目前为止。他说在日线图上我们会详细的研究这一段时间的表现。
Okay, well, let's look at the daily. So here is this lost area. And one of the things that I've mentioned at the top of the session is the specificity of the Chinese market. It's this specific way how institutions behave, and usually we will see the institutional signature from the volume. And here we're seeing how the volume is actually starts to increase, and it starts to increase both on the demand side. So effort is going up, and we are assuming that the demand is going up, but we also not making a very significant progress to the upside. So we might think that supply is also increasing. And therefore, if supply is increasing, we need to understand what kind of result we're going to have.
这就是刚才大家在看周线图上他画的最后的一部分，然后我们在日线图上仔细研究这一段时间。然后刚才说了，中国的股市特异性非常高，非常特别，跟很多国家这个股市表现不太一样。首先我们要找到这个机构的迹象，它的脚印，它的痕迹在哪里？我们从这里呢，从成交量上看到2018年1月到2月之间这段时间成交量很大，而且呢它也造成了一定突破，但是发现这么大的成交量，它突破并没有突破很多，突破了一段时间以后就开始下滑了。在这段时间我们可以看到，因为你成交量增加，而且呢股票的价格也在增加，所以我们说这段时间它的努力增加了。那么努力增加了，结果会怎么样呢？从努力增加的时候，我们可以看到我们可以推测出它的需求增加了，但与此同时供应也增加了。那么它的最后的结果是什么？我们听罗蒙老师再讲。
So what is the result? We are definitely seeing that as we commit to the upside, we actually turning back almost instantly, almost right away. And then on this turning back, we see how supply is increasing. So effort is increasing, result is increasing, that becomes bearish. And we could anticipate some attempts of the price to go up, but it doesn't overcome short-term resistance levels, and also it happens on a slightly decreasing effort. So effort is decreasing, result is decreasing, still bearish. And after this type of indication, we just have a failure and acceleration to the downside, which shows us that increased volatility has more of the distribution qualities behind it.
那么结果是怎么样呢？我们可以画一条线，然后这条线呢，就是在前期2017年11月份的高点的一个平行线。我们可以看到，在2018年1月的时候，这个高点被突破了。被突破以后，突破了多长时间？1周半的时间，然后立刻就开始下跌。这个下跌的时候，我们大家可以看到，下跌的这几条 K 线里面，它的成交量是增加的，而且它的 K 线的价差也增大。而且迅速的下跌的距离也增大，所以在这里面我们说它努力增加了，结果也增加了，所以说努力和量价相符，向下跌量价相符的时候，我们说这里是弱势表现，就是弱势比较弱的这个表现。然后我们再看下跌到前期高点2017年11月份那个高点的时候，这有两条上涨的 K 线，反弹的 K 线。这条反弹 K 线呢，大家看成交量，它却比2018年1月的那个成交量稍微减低一点，而且它的结果呢，它这个反弹嘛，它就是我们的目的就是反弹回原来的高点，但是这个反弹不到1点点的时候，到1/3又开始下跌，所以说我们说结果缩小，所以说是努力也在减小，结果缩小，也就是它反弹的力度不够，反弹的力度不够，这个时候我们也说它也是熊市的信号，就是熊的信号。
So as we look at the area where the volume signature has increased, we're saying that institutions were present here. What did they do? Well, we look at the result. There was an attempt to go up, and then it was a collapse after that. So we're assuming that institutions are in the distribution mode at that period of time. And institutions are the entities that will have usually more information about the markets. They will be much better informed than a retail investor trader. So therefore, they might sell in anticipation of something, for instance, tariff wars with the US. So this could be a way for them to hedge against that type of risk. And then look what happens afterwards. If they were distributing on the way up and they were distributing on the way down, then what do they do now? It seems like there's some kind of inactivity by institutions in this period of time, maybe with an exception of one localized event that could be related, to the tariff story. But other than that, they are not in the position. So they sold their positions and now they're staying away.
大家看罗蒙老师他画圈的这个地方，这就是成交量比较高的地方。成交量比较高呢，我们推断这段时间是机构比较活跃的地方，活跃的时间。那么机构在做什么呢？这一段时间有一段股票上涨的时间，然后有股票下跌的时间，也就是这个机构比较活跃，成交量比较大的时候，股票在上涨，很多人这个散户在这股票这个开始涨了，在买进的时候，机构在做什么？机构肯定是在派发，在卖，不然的话，散户都买进了以后，为什么股票会下跌？所以说这就是机构在卖，机构在卖呢，而且在下跌的过程中，他们也在不断的卖，一直卖到了2月初。卖完以后，大家看2月中旬以后，整个这一段时间段，也就是成交量比较低。这段时间代表什么？成交量比较低的时候，代表了大机构的不作为，也就是说他也不买也不卖，除了中间画了一条线，大概是在3月底的时候，让它有一个跳空下跌这个过程，这一天有可能是散户或者是机构都有一些动作，其他来说基本上来说成交量平平，机构是处于不作为的阶段，也就是不活跃的阶段。
If we would be thinking about institutional behavior and what they do based on the volume signature and the result, we could analog this behavior to this area right here. We're seeing how the volume has increased generally in this area. Effort has increased as well. And we're seeing that the result of it was this finalized movement to the upside before a consolidation. And we kind of could see that there is some smaller distribution qualities, maybe some profit taken that has happened here. And then after that, it's all dull. There is this period of inactivity. And the biggest differences between these two areas that we see is that after the move up, we have a consolidation that holds the levels of support, that does not go lower those levels of support. In the second instance, we have actually something different. As we see the institutional activity to increase, we see how the price has an ability to significantly advance, and then it goes and breaks all of the support levels that we have here. So this is more inherently bearish than the analog before that, and this is extremely important.
我首先翻译一下那个罗老师刚才讲的，我有几句话忘翻了首先来说，这段上涨，最后这段上涨，在2018年1月份的上涨，为什么上涨完了以后会派发，或上涨的过程中也在派发呢？因为这段时间基本上是大机构比较活跃的时间，而大机构来说，它首先来说，它掌握的信息比较准。我们知道最近的下跌和这个关税，中美关税这个冲突有关系。大机构来说，也许他们很早就开始知道，恐怕会有关税争端，很早他们会有内部消息，就知道有些事情，所以说他们就开始拉升，显著拉升，然后迅速卖出，然后这时候导致股价下跌。而通过这段时间，这个从成交量来追踪机构的表现的话，我们可以把罗老师画的这个2，就是他这个画这个圈2和圈1这段时间来相比较。 那么 QE 的这一段时间呢，我们看到从2017年7月份到2017年9月份，甚至到9月份9月底这段时间的成交量也是增加的。我们可以说它的努力在增加，它造成的结果是什么？它造成的结果是从2017年7月份到9月份时间这一段时间的上涨，上涨完以后，到了9月份下半月的时候，大家看到那儿有一段时间股价停顿，但是呢，成交量增加，这段说明什么？说明这段时间有派发，这段派发时间，但是呢，股价并没有跌到很多，这说明什么？是很多人在获利回吐，也就是说，他认为哎，股价已经停涨了，那么我呢停涨以后，它就有两种可能，第一个是长时间盘整，第二呢是股价下跌，那么很多人在这儿就卖出了，卖出以后就导致了成交量增加，然后呢，但是这段时间大家看它下跌。有一部分程度的下跌，在2017年11月份到12月份有这段时间的下跌过程，但是它一直被拖住，在2017年8月的这个支撑线一直让它被拖住，也就是下跌以后，其实谁在吸收？机构在吸收，吸收完以后开始猛拉升，也就这段时间的下跌和2018年2月份的这段下跌，这个情况不一样，这段时间。2018年2月到4月这段下跌更加有熊的意味。
Okay, now we'll talk about this area right here, and specifically, we'll talk about the rallies that we see here. So let's discuss those rallies from the position of the effort and the result.
然后我们现在呢回到这个2018年2月到4月这段时间的表现，我们谈一谈什么？谈一谈向上反弹。然后呢，我们从魏科夫的角度来分析一下这4段反弹。知道吗？知道吗？不好意思啊，可能这段时间连接信号不太好。知道吗 ？Can you hear me?
Let's resume. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you. Just a small break. We wanted to talk about the rallies after this move to the downside. So let's look at the first rally. The first rally actually is quite aggressive, and it moves to the upside in a very aggressive way, but it actually only rallies to 1/2 of the range. So it has no ability to retest significantly the highs that were created by this climactic action here or the upthrust. Also, as the price moves up, we would be comparing the effort, which is actually going down relative to the effort that we've had on the upthrust rally. So that tells us that diminishing effort with the diminishing result inability of the rally to actually overcome 1/2 point is inherently still bearish.
我们现在谈一谈反弹，谈到第一段反弹，这段反弹呢看似比较猛烈，因为什么呢？它在下降波段以后，它立刻就开始反弹，反弹了这段时间呢，我们看一下它的努力和结果。努力呢，它的成交量比就是前一段时间上升波段到抢购高潮这个上升波段来讲，它的成交量少了，也就是说努力减小了。那么结果呢？结果只反弹到了下降波段的一半，也就是上涨只到了区间的中部。如果我们说从抢购高潮到自动下跌，这是个交易区间的话，它只反弹到了区间的中部，所以我们说它的结果也减小，也弱了。那么努力减少了，结果也减少了，这段时间我们仍认为它是熊市的意味。
The next two rallies is just a part of the smaller range at this point. So next one has attempts to increase the effort, or at least keep the effort the same as on the first rally. But the result is even less. The spread is contracting. The distance that this next rally and the rally after that also are contracting, decreasing. And the intention to overcome the resistance fails. So therefore, on the same or slightly increased effort, we see the decrease, significant decrease of the result that tells us that not only it's bearish, but it's actually more bearish, and we could expect some kind of acceleration to the downside, and the gap is just an evidence of this logic.
我们看这两小段这反弹，这两小段反弹呢，我们看成交量来说，它最后一根线啊，最后一个这每一段反弹的最后一根这个上涨 K 线的这个成交量都比前一段时间稍微高一点，或者是总体来说平均来说，它要比前一段时间第一次反弹的成交量稍微高一点，所以我们说这是努力，或者是相等，或者是稍微高一点。那么看结果呢？结果这个反弹它的 intention 来说，或者是它的目的来说，是要突破前高，而每一次来说它都没有突破前高，也就是第二次反弹，看见没有？它比这个二次测试那个高点要低，而第三次反弹这个小的它就更低了，所以说它的结果是大大的减低，也就是说这段时间是熊市的意味，不但比第一次反弹熊，而且要比那个更加弱，更加弱势。
And then in the next area of the consolidation, in this area right here, we see that there is an attempt to increase the effort behind the moves to the upside, and yet still gradually effort is somewhat decreasing. On this localized upthrust action, we see that there is some excitement that the price leaves the trading range for a second, and then there is almost instant failure. So those are the elements of the upthrust, and those are the elements of the potential phase C in the distribution. And look how the price travels down. It increases the spread, the result is increasing, the distance is increasing, and not only it touches the level of the support that was created by the climactic action, it actually makes a slightly lower low, which also shows us that there is some kind of weakness around this area.
那么刚才那两次反弹呢，也就是说，大家说了，熊市意味增强了，更加弱了。那么它的表现是什么？表现出了一个跳空下跌。跳空下跌完以后，形成了另外一个小的局域的交易区间。这段交易区间的时候，大家看上涨的时候就是反弹，这个上涨这个 K 线的成交量比原来更低了，也就是有走低的趋势。也就是说这段时间努力减小了。那么结果呢？看它在这段交易区间之内来回震荡，震荡完以后，到最后一根上涨 K 线的时候，好像是做成了一个上冲回落，也就是想要突破到这个跳空区域，但是立刻就被压回来了。上冲回落完以后，它的结果是什么？结果是3根 K 线，价差增大，到第4根 K 线的时候就已经突破了在自动下跌的时候那个支撑线最低点，所以说它造成了一个底比底低的局面，也就是说向下来说是结果增大了，它是个弱势信号，更加弱的信号。
Also look at where the upthrust is coming. If we would identify most significant bars that have some kind of significant volume signature behind it, or the significant price movement, we probably would be thinking about this area right here. And look where it happens. There is a gap number 1, there is a gap number 2 here. So we see that there was a lot of institutional presence at these 2 events, and the upthrust comes exactly into this area. So this is where we would expect the selling to occur, or at least this area would signify a very poor buying. And we definitely see that the upthrust just comes to this area on the increased effort, and then there is no follow through. There is this inherited inability to rally to the levels of the resistance, either to the first one on the secondary test, which fails, or on the upthrust in this smaller area to the area of the high of the automatic reaction or a secondary test. So that shows again a weakness in the market, inability to rally. So there is no institutional presence in the rallies.
然后呢，我们看到这个2018年4月份这次这上冲回落这个区间啊，它发生位置在哪呢？在2个跳空位置，也是罗蒙老师画了2条线，2条这个平行线，这一条这上一条，也就是他把这个跳空这个区域画出来了。而这次上冲回落刚好就在这个跳空的这个区域里面，这个时候这个供应大量的增加，然后呢，它的上涨失败，然后又返回来了。通过这2条跳空区域，那么他说什么是无力上涨，也就是没有力量能够继续上涨。那么通过这个2次测试，这次的反弹，它没有力量来突破前期高点，而这次上冲回落没有力量突破这个2次测试这个高点，它都属于上涨无力，市场弱的表现。
And even this latest 3 to 4 bars where the price touches the support, makes a new lower low, look at the rally. It doesn't really overcome the high of the last commitment to the downside. It only upthrusts and then fails almost instantly again. There are 2 possibilities here. We might see this as a test of the low, and the price could potentially try to rally. But I doubt that this rally would have a lot of strength behind it. It might come to the level of the upthrust, the previous resistance, and encounter some kind of resistance as well. But also, we probably would be thinking more in terms of the continuation, where the price could potentially break this support and actually go lower.
那么大家看到最后这3条 K 线，目前来说市场也比较弱。首先来说，经过这个刺破前期的支撑又返回了以后，那么这一天呢是上涨 K 线，按照上涨 K 线呢，它也没有上涨很多，甚至没有收盘，没有到前一天它的这个开盘线，立刻就开始回到这个开盘以下这条线，然后第2天到最后一天，也就是礼拜5的时候又开始下跌了。那么现在目前呢到了一个支撑点，到支撑点以后有2种可能性，第一种呢是通过这支撑又有人买入完以后，这个股票有可能会就是这个指数有可能回到前期的这个高点，但是呢可能性比较小。然后另外一种可能就是有可能继续下跌，就是他刚才那个箭头继续下跌。
All right, well, let's look at the Shenzhen composite, and let's see if the picture is somewhat similar to Shanghai. And on the
Go ahead.
On the long-term chart, we see that definitely Shenzhen long-term is somewhat weaker, as it didn't have this ability to rally into the area of the previous resistance. So in this area right here, it is somewhat weaker. Yet, on the short-term basis, the way how the price kind of unfolds here from this low to this low right here, it's slightly stronger. Yet, if we would zoom in on the daily, we still would have, we would see kind of the same type of picture where there is inability to rally significantly off the lows.
那么我们看一下深圳成指 和上证综指。那么这两个这个指数是否有相似的地方呢？首先看一下周线图。那么周线图的表现，深圳成指的周线图其实比上证综指的周线图表现长期来说要弱一点。弱就在哪儿呢？上证综指的时候，目前来说已经接近于2015年的那个12月的那个高点了，它接近，虽然没有达到，但比较接近。而深圳成指来说，它没有继续的上涨，没有这个上涨的通道，接近这个前期高点，所以说总体来说它比较弱。目前来说，最近的这一段时间的表现，它呢却又高于2018年2月的那个下跌的最低点，所以说有可能，这个高于这个，也就底比前底高，稍稍比上证综指来说强一点，但整体来说仍旧是下跌趋势。所以说现在整体来说是无力上涨。
All right, well, let's look at the daily. And daily looks somewhat similar, but still a different structure that we could observe. We are looking at the climactic run, automatic reaction, secondary test, phase A, sign of weakness in phase B, and then the upthrust attempt, which fails on the lower high, so therefore we would label it as LPSY. And then we have a very significant sign of weakness that commits decisively to the downside. And then there are 2 attempts to go up from the lows here.
那么深圳成指呢，它的这个，然后罗蒙老师迅速就开始把这个阶段这个标记出来了，立刻这个标记出来，这是购买高潮，然后自然回落，自然下跌，或者叫然后2次测试，然后这是阶段 A， 然后阶段 B 这里面出现了一个比阶段 A 的这个低的低，所以说这是阶段 B 的弱势信号。然后呢，它这段时间上涨也比较弱，变成了一个高比前高低，所以说我们在阶段 C 的时候把这个呢叫做最后派发点。然后下跌的时候跌破了前期的低点，所以是明显显著的弱势信号。然后在反弹的时候形成了2个最后派发点。
And look at the rallies. The first rally is very aggressive. And it's actually much better than Shanghai rally at the same period of time. It has some kind of continuation above this shorter term level of consolidation. The effort is increasing, but yet again, what is the result? We are not seeing the price coming back into the area of the previous resistance cluster. We're kind of resting on 1/2 of the trading range of that resistance. And that ultimately tells us that the result is also not that great, so we're still in the bearish mode at this point of time. And then there is a very quick collapse on the news into the area of the sign of weakness.
那么大家看这段反弹的波段，看似来说它比上证综指这个反弹比较强一点，尤其是它在这段时间间歇以后又有2天，然后继续向上涨。大家看到这个成交量呢也有增加的趋势，尤其是最后一天的成交量，所以说这个成交量比以前增加了，我们叫做努力增加了。但看结果怎么样？结果它只是反弹到了整个区间的1/2左右，比1/2稍微强一点，也是下跌了。尤其是最后一条 K 线，大家看到这个努力非常增加，但是这个价差非常低。然后呢，尤其是到了2018年3月下旬的时候，这条大概由于消息造成的这条跳空，也就是说它努力增加，但结果没有增加，也是在降低，也就上涨是吧？上涨这波段结果在降低，所以我们说它是熊市意味。
And then out of this low, after the gap, and please observe that the gaps happen at the same level. So we would be expecting some supply come in at this point of time. And we are definitely experiencing, again, some kind of upthrust situation where the price tries to go up, result is contracting, and then it fails. And continuing with the measurement of the effort, we see that on each of the rallies, the effort is decreasing, which just basically tells us that there is no institutional sponsorship at this point of time, and we're probably going to go lower. As we're trying to recover, our goal, if we are bulls, was to overcome this commitment line of this last significant bar to the downside, and yet we cannot do this either, and we are failing again. So all of these characteristics are more of bearish characteristics than of the bullish characteristics. And we only would see the bullish picture to return if we could potentially commit to the upside. If the price is going to continue going down and undercut the supports, most likely we're going to retest this low right here, or even the lows that are much lower down the road.
罗蒙老师指出了这两个跳空下跌的这个区域，看这两个跳空下跌区域基本上在一个平行线上，也就是在这两个跳空跳区的顶端都肯定会有大量的供应，所以才会导致价格跳空下跌。而且最后这次上涨呢，通过这个低点以后，这有一个反弹上涨。这个反弹上涨以后呢，大家看到了这个跳空区域的时候，都由于供应的增加而导致这次反弹失败，然后迅速跌回来。而且每一次它的反弹的时候，大家看这个成交量都一次比一次的低，也就是说努力在不断的减小。这段时间有可能就是机构它根本不作为、不参与的时候，这块都是散户他的希望能够突破前高，但是呢都是失败了，而且所以说指数的价格再往回跌，跌到这个支撑线的时候，正好有一次反弹。大家看到这是一个锤子线，反弹完以后呢，到这儿到了它没有到前一条 K 线的这条 K 线的这个开盘点，就失败了，又开始跌回来。所以说，如果我们对市场看多的话，那么我们什么时候看多呢？就是说这个超过了这条线的开盘点，也就是这个阻力线。我们突破这个阻力线，那么我们可以说，市场有可能继续往上走。但是看这个趋势的话，非常有可能是跌破这个支撑线，跌破这条锤子线的低点，这个支撑线。如果跌破了这条支撑线的话，很有可能会到达这个点位，测试这个点位。如果跌破了这个点位的话，很可能要测试这个2017年这个低点了。
All right, well, that's it for today. Just be safe with your trading and investments. And we thank you for watching this video. Email us, give us some feedback, give us some comments. If you have any questions, send us your questions as well. We'll be happy to look at that. And until next week. And thank you so much to Jar Goblin for translating this session. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
感谢大家，今天就讲到这里。然后呢，希望大家交易的时候谨慎，然后仔细研究。然后呢，也非常感谢大家观看我们的视频，给我们提出很多意见和建议。也感谢国本先生做的翻译。好，谢谢大家，再见。